Okay, so Gus is not introducing me, so I will introduce myself. So I'm Oscar Garcia. I work for Information Catalyst. We guys are the coordinators of the BFOS, which is the Virtual Factory Open Operating System. Okay, so what is BFOS? So for BFOS, we have been really thinking about the best way to present what is really BFOS, because at the end of the day, all these projects are really nice, really has really big buzzwords, but nobody at the end knows what it is. So let's start with a little bit of history. You probably may know who this guy right on the corner is. It's Bill Gates. That was the original crew of DOS at the ages. You may probably know who is this guy also. It's not Stuart, it's not the coordinator, just that's clear. And he's the inspirer of iOS. So what we finally thought, okay, so if we have an operating system for computers, an operating system for mobiles, either it's Android, it's iOS, it's whichever other one, why don't we have an operating system for virtual factories? So that's the main idea behind what is BFOS. It's the virtual factory operating system. I'll skip the video. You can go to YouTube, search for us, and you will see it. What's the ambition that we have? So, well, it's pretty easy. It's an operating system. So, as such, what we want to do is facilitate the way that applications are developed into that operating system. Coming back to the analogy on this case on Android, so you want to develop an app for an Android phone, you need the SDK, Java programming IDE, and the Google Play or the Android Marketplace to exploit it. The same happens in iOS. You need iOS SDK, Swift language, and the iTunes or the Apple App Store. So for BFOS, we have exactly the same. We have, if you want to create a BFOS application, you will require the BF OAK, which is the Open Application Development Kit, and utilize the BFOS platform, which has its own BFOS marketplace, which is called BF Store. Who is BFOS? Well, BFOS is full of these people. That was last October. You can see that it was a really stressful and complex meeting by the beach, of course. BFOS is really complex. This is a drawing, well, it's not a drawing, it's a 3D model, really complex 3D model that we use to synthesize what BFOS is. The really big part in the middle is the platform, and here we have, I don't know if I can recognize them, but maybe this is the BF Store, that's the BF Studio, which is pretty similar to a laptop, maybe. That's the different use cases where we can see here a building, maybe, I don't know. And BFOS is a really big project, okay? So we did also some collaborative stuff to see who was able to build the biggest pole dancing made of paper in there. Obviously, the tiniest one is this one. So we have the tiny and the big one by that. Coming back to the SOS analogy, we have in a operating system, we have the kernel, input and output, file and data handling. We have also SDK, and we have finally applications. Similarly, we have the same in BFOS. So we have the virtual factory system kernel, which is formed by framework, the BFOS framework and the enablers coming from the Firewall environment. The virtual factory input and output, which is drivers, APIs, security, which is really important. The guy from security has already vanished, so cannot complain about that. We have, of course, the middleware, which is data infrastructure, data storage, harmonization, analytics. Similar to the SDK, we have the OAK, system dashboard, front-end environment, the studio, the developer engagement hub, which is a pretty similar way, assimilable to Stack Overflow, where we post our questions and other developers solve them. And then finally, an operating system without applications is nothing. So we have also we have coined the term of VApps, which are apps for collaborating in real time, for monitoring, for sharing documentation, whichever kind of need for the different use cases. Why use cases? Because BFOS will be nothing without application. We have 3 different use cases. First one is manufacturing and logistics automation, which we aim to integrate into BFOS the advanced management of spare parts in the automation production environments. Second one is the manufacturing assembly and collaboration, in which a metal producer and a plastic producer are collaborating to build more complex products. And final one, we have the construction and industrialization scenario, which is simply a kind of documentation management and roles assignments to see the different documentation. Of course, we want to expand that ecosystem. How and what? We are going to develop the starter apps, which will be open and really attractive to use. They will be flexible, which will be composed of non-really heavy monolithic structures. They will be really light, really portable, to reach a commercial grade, because we want to use what is already there and tie together as much as possible. And we were thinking also in putting some kind of BFOS hackathon for developers, prizes in which we engage the developers community to develop VApps for the purpose of their own money. How are we going to go on the exploitation and sustainability of BFOS? Well, we will remain as open access. It's open by definition. We will provide a sustainable marketplace and storage, as I said, pretty similar to the mobile apps stores, and we will set up a startup company which will take all the benefits from here and start making money on that. All of this is based on the multi-sided platform marketplaces, in which we have producers in one side, we have consumers in another side, so we have manufacturers, service providers, content providers, data providers, etc. providers. Through a digital interface, they are providing their products and services, information, any kind of interaction, which is all combined into different technologies, different algorithms, and finally they are producing apps for the users who are consuming these apps. How? This technology is based, of course, in a stack, like any operating system. So we are moving, as I said before, from the kernel to the platform, but of course in the context of the different user scenarios. This is our main graphic. We have the BFOS platform right in the middle, which is contacting with the different 4 kinds of stakeholders that we have. In the middle of the platform, we have the BFOS store, the BF store, which acts as the iTunes for iOS. In here, all the apps that are developed by the software developers, by service providers, or by manufacturing and logistics solution providers are published for the usage of the manufacturing and logistics users who may have a in-house deployment of BFOS, so they have the the warranty that the data that they have in there will still stay in their house, or we also have the possibility of executing this in an on-cloud environment through other service providers, like really similar to Amazon Web Services or Azure. That picture evolved to this high-level architecture in which we have still the same stakeholders on the edges, the external service providers, software developers, the manufacturing and logistics solution providers, and here the manufacturing and logistics users. And here the platform has been divided into 3 different lanes: the design lane, the runtime lane, and the usage lane. The design lane is used for generating the VApps. It contains the VF Studio for assembling the apps. It contains also the data mapping, the SDK, of course, the front-end environment, the engagement hub, the training for the developers. It's anything that has to be used by the developers when they are developing the apps, the VApps. Runtime, it's basically what relays underneath the platform. It's the runtime platform, which we have the middleware, data management, control, and input-output toolkit. Here we have from storage to analytics to access to APIs on drivers, also pops up as messaging components, process execution, security, which is quite critical, and finally, how are the apps being used in here through the components that are in the use lane. So they are published in the marketplace, in the VF store, or they are reusing other VApps if deemed necessary. This was the initial architecture that evolved to a really complex scenario, and I won't go into the detail of this because it's really not readable at all. But of course, that's what we thought it was the best. Of course, that was the second iteration. The third iteration was even more complex. I only know that this one is the data storage. I don't know which are the other ones because it's really hard to read what's in there. And then finally, a couple of slides on who is the partnership. So it's a compendium of 14 different companies across Europe. And these are our channels for contacting. And that's all. Well, that's an advertisement slide from us.
Okay.
And that's it. Thank you.